Hey, Vinyl community, happy Thursday or Friday by the time you watch this video, probably. But I am here with my good friends, Gary from Physical Format Rock and Roll and Aaron Mutha Alamere. We are going to talk tonight about our top 10 favorite Police songs. The band Police, Sting, Andy Summers, and Stewart Copeland. Since there's three of us, we thought we would do one of our favorite trios. It was going to be Rush or it was going to be Cream, but we drew straws and we decided on the Police. So we are going to have Gary start us off with his 10 through 6 list.
All right. So I started off, my number 10 song to me is one that just kind of represents the very early Police. Including like the single, like Fallout, things like that they released even before their first album. I picked Dead End Job. I love that song. The Police, of course, when they started out it's kind of the end of the whole punk scene, but it was still going on. And so they were doing kind of punk-like music, which this song is, but they, of course, they could do punk just because they wanted to. A lot of punk bands have to play punk because they're not that good of a musician. They can't play anything else, but as we know, the Police can pretty much play whatever they want. So when they would do songs that were punk songs, they were great. They were excellent. And the Police, when they started out, had so much energy. They were so much kind of different than, like when you think of like the Synchronicity album, which is, I don't know, I think that's probably the most popular album. But when they first started out with Outlandis d'Amour and the period right before that, when they were becoming a band, they were a lot more raw. And Dead End Job is just a great fast song, Dead End Job, I don't want no dead end job going. It's just fun to listen to. I love that era of the band to go along with the stuff that we're going to be talking about later. So that's my number 10, represents all that era. Number 9, now we're moving forward to Zenyatta Mondatta. I have When the World is Running Down, You Make the Best of What's Around. I love the lyrics in this song because they're just all over the place. There's so many words just all jammed together. They're pretty cool. I also like that toward the later in the song, that instrumental break that they have there, and that bass part, man, is just real funky. It just really adds to the song. I love that song. Next up, number 8 is So Lonely. I mean, honestly, I don't know that. This song could be higher. I'm thinking as I'm saying this because I really love this song. I love the back and forth, which, becomes kind of a trademark with the Police, the way their verses are different than their chorus as far as the speed goes and everything. They really kick it up in the chorus on this song. They do a lot of reggae in their music. They combine reggae with rock, and that's a thread that goes through a few albums there, this being one of them. So Lonely on that. And I also really love the way, I know this sounds stupid, but I love the way Sting says lonely. So lonely, so lonely. I don't know, there's just something about the way he sings that, and it's just, they keep doing it over and over, and he sounds really cool. And so I've always loved that. I love the chorus in that song.
Well, number 7. Fun with it at the end, right? At the end of that song, where it's, I'm so low, low, low. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And they have lots of that, really, in a lot of their music, where they add little things where they are, kind of horsing around. They definitely do it in their videos. They had some of the best videos, the Police, because they had a lot of energy in those videos. They were always goofing off. You never knew what Stewart Copeland and Sting were going to do to each other in those videos. And well, like this next song, Don't Stand So Close to Me. I mean, everybody knows that song. I really there's not much I need to say about it, except it's one of those songs that definitely paints a picture for you. It tells you the whole story there, right? Here's this middle-aged guy, here's a teacher, and there's this student that's kind of showing him a little bit of attention, and he doesn't know what to do. He's all flustered, and he gives her a ride in the car when it's raining and all that stuff. And basically, it paints him sympathetic and pathetic at the same time in that song, if that makes sense. I mean, if you're familiar with the song, obviously you are. If you're watching this, you know what I mean. You know, you kind of sympathize with the character at times, but yet you also like, you know, he's being ridiculous, right? And so that's what that song is. And of course, it's just the chorus is just another chorus that's so catchy. I've heard this song a million times. I still love it. It's just one of these. The Police have a lot of songs like this, to me, that I've heard many, many times that I still love. There's not a whole lot of bands where they're big hits I still love. Now, granted, there are some songs by the Police that I'm a little worn out on, but this is not one of them. Number 6 is another song, big hit, played a lot, but Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. That song is it's such a happy sounding song. And normally, you know, a lot of times guys like us, we're not necessarily into the happy sounding songs. You know, we like songs that are more a little bit darker or heavier or that type of thing. But this, you know, even has a little, that steel drum thing going on there at times. It's just such a wonderful song. You can't help but love it. I mean, it does have a couple verses that are a little more darker in a way, but for the most part, it's a pretty upbeat, joyous song. And once again, played to death, still love it. If it pops on the radio, I'm still listening to it. Every Little Thing She Does is Magic, number 6.
Well, I don't have to go now. You did all my those are all good songs.
Yeah, no, but I totally agree. And a lot of these songs, it's the same way. I could hear them over and over and not get sick of them just because they hold up so well. And we're talking about now, these are songs that are what, like 40 years old?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And, you know, even some of the songs that I'm probably not going to mention tonight, that maybe a few of the bigger hits are still I still like them. You know, they don't really have any song to where I feel like, even though it's been played to death, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, I'm so sick of this song. They really don't have any songs like that to me. I mean, you know, I can still, if I'm right in the mood, man, I can hear them and still sing along.
Yeah. All right, Aaron.
All right. So I only did a top 20 today. But, you know, I had a top 30 and I whittled it down, but I'll just do my 10. But yeah, I'd like to say that So Lonely is in my top 20, but it didn't quite make my top 10. That's a great song. I love that one. And so my number 10, which is interesting, I thought no one was going to choose this song, and it's one of my favorites. It's from this record. It's When the World Is Running Down, You Make the Best of What's Still Around. So when you said that was your number 9, I was like, wait a second here, what's going on? It's just, lyrics are crazy in it. You know, talking about all this different, you know, James Brown and, you know,
yeah,
and, you know, adult movies and all kinds of weird stuff there. Yeah, I love it. But the music, it's just such a catchy, infectious song. I just love that song. I always have. This is my favorite Police record, always has been. I started out listening to them during Synchronicity, but I heard their hits before that. When Synchronicity came in, I bought the cassette and listened to that to death. But this has always been my favorite. And I believe I have 4 or 5 songs on my list from this record. So cool. That's how much. So my number 9, I'm going to go from Regatta de Blanc and Walking on the Moon. You know, some may say, I just love that chorus is just so killer. And it's just, every time I hear it, it's just infectious. I love the song Walking on the Moon. The bass is great in it. Of course, Stuart Copeland is a beast on the drums on all their stuff. one of the best drummers of all time, one of the best bass players. They're just such a great band. And Walking on the Moon is just one of those songs. It's like you're saying with the other one, it's kind of happy, but it's dark at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of got Walking on the Moon, and it has the happy chorus, but it blends together so well that I really love it.
I'm glad to hear you talk, because I know you're a drummer, and so you can appreciate Stewart Copeland, just how unique he is and how good he is.
Oh yeah,
he's just so I love Stewart Copeland's drumming, and you know I like, he's also a drummer. You know, we were talking about Ringo Starr before we came on the air here. Mm-hmm. He's another guy that sometimes he just does little things,
yes,
but they're perfect. They're perfect in the song, and we will be talking about Walking on the Moon again. I will tell you that.
I love cymbals and hi-hat and all that is just amazing. And then he adds all he's such a perfect technical drummer, but he has so much feeling. A lot of times from technical, you get the technical musician, they don't have all the feeling in it. He's both. That's why I like him so much. And so number 8, and this one is going to surprise some people that have made it. It's from the is de do 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 da 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 da. Now that song gets a lot of grief because of the chorus, but actually the lyrics of that song are some of the best lyrics Sting wrote. I think the part when your eloquence escapes me, your logic ties me up and rapes me. That line, and then this like obla-dee obla-da type chorus right after these really meaningful lyrics. It's just, I really love the balance of that, and like I said, the drumming on it. And that song doesn't get its due, I don't think, because of the simplified chorus, but the verses are so good and so well written. It's always been one of my favorites because of that. And a lot of people don't really like that song just because of the do 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 da da da.
Yeah,
because it's kind of goofy. But the rest of it just has so much feeling when Sting is singing those verses. It's just, you feel the song like coming at you. I just love it.
Well, it's got the same lyrical theme as the Who's I Can't Explain, you know, just the idea that, you know, there's a communication breakdown because the person can't find words to express what they're feeling. And it's just the police's way of, you know, the way that they chose to put across that theme. But I've always loved it. That has never annoyed me, that chorus. I find it kind of charming, actually, you know. It's like, who else could get away with that, you know?
No, yeah. It makes sense of what you're saying, you know, to the song. Like, basically, the whole song is saying how you can't express yourself. So the chorus, do, 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 da, 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 you know, that goes along with it. Aaron's talking about how cool the lyrics are. Now, I think that's an excellent song. But you're right, Aaron. It does get shit on sometimes because of the chorus. People make fun of it. But the chorus is written that way on purpose.
Exactly. It's actually very smartly written, even though it doesn't seem like it is, but it is. That's why I like it so much. It's one of those you have to think about for a minute, and then you understand what they're doing there. So,
well, and it's got one of the most interesting lyrics in rock and roll where their logic ties me up and rapes me.
Yeah, I love that so much.
Like, you know, and it's just like, you know, it's like nobody like bats an eye about it, but it's just kind of the words there.
Yeah, Sting has a way of getting away with these weird lyrics like that no one even realizes what he's saying unless you really look at it. And they're really smartly written, and I really love it. It's just, I love that. So my number 7, I'm going to go from this amazing record, Spirits in the Material World. Love that song. I've always loved it. It's the creepiness factor of it and the dark factor. I just love that song. You know, and it's like you said, every time it comes on the radio, even though I don't listen to it very often, but when I do, if that song comes on, I crank it to 11. It's just one of those songs, you know, it's as loud as it can go because it's just so different. There's really never been a song that sounds quite like that. Spirits in the Material World.
Yeah, well, and every little thing she does is magic, notwithstanding. That's a very dark record.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Love this record, and I love that's. I think that's the only one that made it from here, amazingly. But there's a bunch of my 11 through 20 from here. So, and then what am I going here? Number 6, back to Zenyatta Mondatta. Shadows in the Rain. Shadows in the Rain. I love that.
Oh, wow.
slower song, but that's I'm trying to remember the lyrics. I got Walking on the Moon going through my head. That was going through my head for like 2 days. The last 2 days, Shadows in the Rain was. That's why I put it so high. It's not one you think of immediately, but it's just so subtle. And Andy Summers does some really interesting guitar work in that song. It's really subtle, but you listen, it's all this really weird little sounds he does. It's really cool. And I just love Shadows in the Rain. Great song.
Yeah, when I think of that, that song kind of elevated a bit in stature when Sting put it on Dream of the Blue Turtles, when he did a jazzier version of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this version better, but I like the one. That's an amazing record there too.
Mm-hmm.
I would have put a song or two from that album in this list maybe if I would have been doing it like that.
Yeah. What key is this in? Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. That's only on that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That at the very beginning, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I love Shadows in the Rain. It's just one of those songs that sticks in my head. And it's kind of a one that you wouldn't think of being one of my favorites, but it is. So.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That was on my original top 10 list, and then but I love it. I think it's a great song. I love that album. That was the very first Police album that I ever bought. I listened to that, and I'm like, this is the greatest band. And I was a Beatles fan at that time, but I'm like, this is the best band ever. And it was no looking back after that. But so my bottom five, I'm going to start off with a track from Outlandos D'Amour. I'm going to go with Truth Hits Everybody. And this is one that I had on my other list. But I just love, Gary, you talked about the fact they used to be a punk band, and they were, Aaron, thanks for the validation. I know that was so, that they started out as a punk band before they got into some of the other styles of music that they went into. And they do it very convincingly. I mean, they're not like doing a put on, or they're not trying to, pretend to be a punk band. I mean, that song's very convincing. And, it's got a very frenetic, the verses are very frenetic, but then the chorus, kicks it up even more. I wouldn't go so far as to call it like a thrash kind of chorus, but it's still, truth is everybody, it's very cool. One of their heavier tracks. And I dig it a lot. And when that is actually the only song that I have off this album, but I could have put Next to You on here. I love that one a lot. Born in the 50s, I used to like a lot more when I was younger than I kind of do now. It's sort of one of those tracks I don't know, for me, hasn't aged all that well. Can't Stand Losing You, I think was great, but it's just one of those where I've just heard it too many times. And I'm not trying to, do like my bottom 10 by saying that, but I just feel bad because I don't have any other songs from that album, but I think it's a great one. I'm not trying to shortchange it. My number 9 is going to be Don't Tell the Director I Said So, but are you safe? I have like director, like a director of a movie, director of secret organization. You never know. The lyrics are just so mysterious that you never know, but you just know, like, whoever it is that the protagonist in this song is, whoever the person who's speaking is, directing their message to, is somebody who is like speaking out, making waves, causing trouble for somebody who is going to silence them if they don't shut the hell up. But I love, but the lyrics, never mind the lyrics. I love, and the point I made in another video is the fact that the track before this is Mother, which I think is by far my least favorite police track of all time. And that's like, we're talking about, I hate it even worse than Friends. I hate it even worse than that Mr. Bates song. There's so many, like, it's still always at the bottom. It's like, what And the thing that I don't get is the B side to, I think it might have been King of Pain, is Someone to Talk To, which is an Andy Summers vocal. Like, why couldn't they have put that on there? Why did they have to put Mother on there? Mother screams out to be a B side. It's sort of an experiment that just fails miserably. And I don't know why it's on that album, but it is. And so my point being, you know, you're just, if you were like me and it's like, oh God, I'm too lazy to lift the needle, I'll just put up with this for 2.5 minutes. But then you get the relief. You get that, the tom-toms, but-a-doo. And then you get the, you know, that beautiful, those beautiful arpeggios at the beginning of Miss Grodenko. And it's actually, Stuart Copeland wrote this song, which many people realize. Stuart Copeland sort of kind of came into his own, I think, with Ghost in the Machine and Synchronicity as a songwriter. But I love it. I love it. It's Andy Summers' guitar work that sells the song for me, because not only do you have the beautiful arpeggios in the verses, but in the chorus, if you listen to Andy Summer in the background, it's just beautiful what he's playing. I mean, it's just so soft. It's so melodic. It's so great. I mean, you know, if somebody wants to know, like, what's my favorite guitar part by Andy Summer, you know, how melodically Andy Summer can express himself in a song, just listen to the chorus of Miss Grodenko. It's just so fantastic. It's so beautiful. And that's why I like it so much. That's why it's on here. Not many people really rank this song that high on Synchronicity, because there's so many other great songs on here, but I think Miss Grodenko is fantastic. I think it's a sleeper track on this album, and I'm putting it at number 9. Number 8, I am going to follow suit with you guys. I can't help it. I love When the World Is Running Down. You make the best of what's still around. Yeah, for me, this is always, I mean, Machine is my favorite, but this is such a close second, because I've heard people say this is a weak Police album. I don't know what the hell drugs you're on, because this is just a great, great album. There's not a track on here that I think is filler or that I don't like. And I'm including Behind My Camel on here. I still like Behind My Camel. I think that's a great one. But yeah, I think it's the most interesting song lyrically. And that's saying something considering the other tracks that are on here. But, you know, I ditto everything that you guys said. And then number 6, I'm going to my favorite, where is it? My favorite Police album of all time, Ghost in the Machine for Invisible Sun. And when I talk about Ghost in the Machine being a dark record, Invisible Sun is kind of the first track where you think, oh, this isn't like anything we've ever heard from the Police before. It's just very brooding. The lyrical themes of it are just kind of there. It just feels very oppressive, even though it's a very simple song. It's just pretty much keyboard, but it's keyboard in a way that isn't, when you think of, you know, the early 80s, you immediately think of synth pop, cheesy synthesizers. That's kind of, anybody who hates 80 music, you know, they talk about, you know, oh, well, the synthesizers and that, but and I've made this point in other videos before, but the way that the Police use keyboards and synthesizers on Ghost in the Machine, it's so dark and it's so ominous, and they use it in a way that's like no other band in the early 80s was using it. They weren't using it to replace like horns or a brass section. They were using it as an instrument that actually conveyed a dark mood, or, you know, some kind of like unease. It puts you on ease. Invisible Sun, I mean, there was actually a video for that, but yeah, I think, you know, there's really, I mean, there's guitars kind of, yeah, I mean, there is somewhat of a guitar solo, but to me, it's all the keyboard, it's the synthesizers, and it's Sting, oh, you know, it's just like something's not right with the song, but that's the, I think, where the beauty is. He's talking about, I mean, it's very serious lyrically, but the mood is so dark, and I think that sets the tone for kind of the rest of the album. But that's, I mean, you know, Exhibit A, why Ghost in the Machine is my favorite Police album.
I'm glad you said that about the keyboards, because there were certain bands in the 80s that used the keyboards really smartly, like the Police, the Cars, a few other ones that used them really well. And a lot of them used them just kind of like as a gimmick. And that's the keyboards I don't like. And when they use the keyboards well, I really like the keyboards. And the Police were masters of it. You're right.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And first album where they actually were keyboards, I mean, they use the keyboard, I would say, is a dominant instrument on that album. You look at Spirits in the Material World. First thing you hear is that reggae, and it's not reggae that you usually hear on the guitar. It's reggae on the keyboard. Boop, 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 boop. But you're not like, oh, this is cheesy. Oh, lame. I mean, it totally works. It absolutely does. Keyboards on Invisible Sun, keyboard on, you know, I mean, all of side two, every song on side two, I think the keyboards are there as that kind of textural, you know, backdrop that helps kind of darken the mood on those songs. But, you know, anyway, don't get me started.
Don't get me started. I want to be like Aaron and start putting up some of my my extra songs.
Unless you want me to read them at the end, I'll do that.
You gotta quit doing that, Aaron. You can't make me laugh while Jeff is talking serious shit. He's over there.
Yeah, Jeff is a master of serious stuff.
Yeah, I totally understand it all the time. Yeah. All right, 5-2.
Oh, okay. Mine. So my number. No, what are we doing now? How are we doing this?
5 through 2.
5 through 2. Okay, you just said that. I'm sorry. I just realized that. My hearing's like yours. It's not that good.
That's all right.
Number 5. All right. Jeff just shit on this song a little bit, but I'm I'm going with Can't Stand Losing You. I'm sorry. I'm not tired of it, even though I have heard it a lot. It still gets to me. I mean, you know, I love it when he says, your brother's going to kill me and he's 6'10". I guess you'd call it cowardice, but I can't go on like this. And I just think that song it's kind of funny. The verses are like that, you know, once again, it's kind of got that different, almost reggae beat. But then that chorus, you know, I can't stand losing. I can't stand losing. And he sounds so desperate in the song. He sings it just like it should be, because, you know, it's, I can't stand losing. You're like, I can't take it. And that's how he sings that song. It has that approach to it. It's another song like that everybody in the band is so masterful at. I realize, you know, Sting maybe is the one writing it and singing it, but even the drums, everything goes along with that. When they want to be frantic about something, they all jump on board on that. And the vocals especially. Sting is, you know, it's funny. Now I'm thinking of this right now. You know, we're always talking about who are the best rock vocalists of all time. So nobody ever mentioned Sting. You know, nobody ever talks about him because nobody thinks of them, you know, in like the rock vein in a way, because, you know, the Police were they were on an island over here by themselves. You know, they were so unique. But when you think about how expressive that Sting was in his vocals, and, you know, he might not have had the range of some other people, but he had an extremely nice tenor voice. And he is a great singer. And he sings, you know, because he's writing these songs for the majority of them, not all of them, but and the way he expresses his vocals is just fantastic. To me, that's just another example of it.
Well, Gary, I can't let this go. Lyrically in that song, being a vinyl enthusiast as you are, like seriously, girl hands you back your stack of records and they're all scratched and you still want her back? Like, that's not acceptable. You're dead to me now. And you know she did that deliberately. That wasn't like, oh, well, we just played them too. No, that was she deliberately. You can tell from the way he sings the lyric. She did that deliberately. She gave him back all his records, and it's like keying your car. If you're like, you know, a car enthusiast, somebody keys your car, like, I'm sorry, that's a bridge too far. You are dead to me. So that, like, I mean, the song loses all credibility after that line. It's like, oh wow.
But that's the whole thing of it. He's not saying that he shouldn't be doubler, but I can't stand it. I can't stand losing you.
But Gary, my wife scratches my record on accident. That's grounds for divorce. So,
well,
whatever. I guess we're gonna have to agree to disagree on that one.
Yeah, well, I can't argue with the Jeff Witcher logic on that. Number 4, you guys have already talked about this song, but Spirits in the Material World. To me, you were talking about Invisible Sun setting the tone. To me, this is the kickoff track of that album, and it sets the tone for me because, like you said, all of a sudden, you know, the first thing you hear is Stuart Copeland, and then they go into, you know, that keyboard, that heavy keyboard, and you're like, oh, okay, this is going to be different. And even the vocals are different, right? They're recorded differently. There's the vocals you hear on that song, the way they sound. There's nothing else on the other 3 Police albums before that sound like that. You know, that's a different sound right there. The way they're singing it, or the way it's recorded, or whatever, a little bit of reverb that's in there. And it's also, I love the lyrics in that song too. Our so-called leaders speak with words, they try to jail you, they subjugate the weak, and it's the rhetoric of failure. That's awesome stuff. You know, I mean, you're listening to that when you're however old I was when that album came out. I was, I don't know, maybe a sophomore or whatever. And you're thinking, oh wow, that's pretty cool. You know, and that album was I remember when the Police came out, and I guess I didn't really pay much attention. I mean, I knew the song Roxanne, obviously, that was a huge hit, but I don't think I really paid attention to them until Zenyatta Mendata. And, you know, I would have been in junior high at that time. And by that album, you know, they were a bigger band. I mean, you know, people knew the Police and stuff. And so but they were so different. You know, you were so used to listening to bands like Aerosmith and everything like that. And the Police were just so different. And when this album came out, it was even more of a change. And this was the lead track. You know, you put this cassette, well, I think I had the cassette at first. You put that on and you hear that's the first track. And then you listen to that whole album. And it's one of those albums where you kind of had to listen to it a few times. Because I remember the first time hearing that, you know, some of the songs stuck out, and other times it's just like, man, this just has such a dark sound to it. It doesn't sound like the Police that we are used to. But then the more you listen to it, the more you appreciate it. And like you're saying, Jeff, you know, now it's your favorite Police album. But I don't know how you felt maybe the very first time you heard it. It definitely has to grow on you. But this song just definitely sent a message, I think.
Well, and it couldn't be any more different. That album could not be any more different from the album that came before it. I mean, you think about the bright poppy songs that are on Zenyatta Mendata, Canary in a Coal Mine, Man in a Suitcase, do-do-do-do, da-da-da-da. You know, I mean, there's some, I mean, Behind My Camel is like a little bit weird and dark. I mean, I think that's the first time you actually heard a synthesizer on a Police track. But even Bombs Away, that has kind of a dark, kind of fascist theme, it's still presented kind of like a Bombs Away.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of like, oh, a happy little chorus there. Don't Stand So Close. Every track on that album is like bright, and it's poppy, and it's cheerful. You know, even, you know, When the World is Running Down is, you know, still poppy. And then you go to Ghost in the Machine, where it's like all dark. It's very subdued. There's no fun lyric on Ghost in the Machine at all, like the do-do-do-da-da-da-da or Canary in a Coal Mine, or, you know, I mean, a very light themed, you know, sort of like, I'm so tired of being on the road, man in the suitcase, kind of a song. You know, I mean, everything is just dark and brooding, and, you know, the juxtaposition of that. And I think that's what kept the Police relevant, and they kept moving forward. They're like, we're not going to rest on our laurels. We could do Zenyatta Mondatta too, but they chose not to. And I think that's what made them great, is we're going to go in a completely different direction with Ghost in the Machine.
Yeah, they definitely decided at that point, you know, the whole reggae rock stuff that they had been doing, they weren't doing it anymore on this album. Number 3, going backwards, Aaron already talked about this song quite a bit, and that is Walking on the Moon. I have always loved that song. From the first time, that's one of those songs from the first time I heard it. I loved it. Even though it's a different type song, I think, than what I would normally like. But, you know, that is, so much of that is on the bass. You know, that the riff is the bass, and then that guitar is just dun dun dun, 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 dun. It's just such a light touch to that song, the way they do it. Like, you know, Aaron already said, Stuart Copeland's great on that song. The way he does that whole thing, you know, where he hits the rim and he gets that sound like that. Or a lot of times when Stuart Copeland plays on the snare, he's hitting at the very outer edge of the snare to get that real sharp, high-pitched sound sometimes. He also tuned his snare very high compared to like what a lot of drummers would do it, especially around that time. And it's just, that song is just so unique. And the whole idea of it, right, is, you know, hey, I just went to my girlfriend's house and I'm coming home. I'm on top of the world, man. I'm walking on the moon. You know, I mean, just, you can just picture it. You can picture, you know, here's this, you know, especially you're a young person and you're walking home, you're walking through town, back to your house, and you're just kind of skipping along, man. It's just a great song. Walking on the Moon.
That's a great example of less is more. You know,
yes.
They could, yeah. It's a very simple arrangement. It's a very bare bones arrangement. You know, it's one of those where like the space is what really defines that song.
You're right. The space is basically another instrument in that song. Less is more. That's perfect. I'm glad you said that. I should have thought of that, because that defines that song. The sound of that song, man, I love it.
Yeah.
We're doing number 2, right? Also?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Number 2, Jeff, you talked about this quite a bit, and that's Invisible Sun. That was the one I remember when that video came out, because like Invisible Sun was released as a single in other countries, but not over here in the United States. But they did release it as a video, and, you know, it's just a black and white, stark video. It fit the song. I love the way that song starts out. You know, 1, doom, 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 2, 3. You know, they count to 6. Whoa, whoa. And then they go into the song. And lyrically, it's very dark. It's about a war-torn country, but yet it also offers hope, because that's what the invisible sun is. You know, they're talking about living through shit and all this horrible stuff, but you got to have some kind of faith. This is actually, you know, well, you have every little thing she does is magic, which is on there. But the fact that he's talking about, there has to be an invisible sun. There has to be hope out there. You know, that song offers hope. It's talking about all this bleak stuff, but then it talks about the invisible sun. And I wrote down this lyric here. It's dark all day and glows all night, factory smoke and a settling light. What's perfect about that is it's dark all day, but then you go up to the next line, the first words and says factory smoke. So the next line, he's explaining the first line. Factory smoke is why it's dark all day. Acetylene light is why it glows all night, right? People welding or running cutting torches through whatever, you can see that light. That's why it's glowing. I faced the day with the head caved in, looking like something that the cat dragged in. So, now he's talking about the other stuff that's going on. Not only, this, to me, this line says how, well, they're trying to go on. They still got the factories going. They still have this stuff going on, but yet they have war going on too. They have bombings and whatnot in their country. There's just a lot going on in this song. And the way it is so dark, it's got that synthesizer loop going through that entire song. But then you also have Andy Summers doing those little guitar things all throughout that song that are almost in the background. He's just coloring that song. He's adding to it. And this is just one of the songs to me. This is like a genius type song. Stuart Copeland, he just does what he needs to do in that song. Sometimes he's just playing the bass drum, going through it. So he's not taking away from anything. You can concentrate on those lyrics. They're creating a mood in this song. So that's my number 2.
Yeah, well, you think about the synthesizer so much, you forget about that Andy Summer, what he's playing. Yeah, but that, like, the song's nothing without that. You don't have that. The song's right. Bland, but that adds color to it. But it's very in the background. It's not flashy. It's not a riff that you even can hum necessarily in your head. But if not, I mean, that's why it's so perfect is, they're not trying to like knock you over the head. You could have taken those lyrics and totally like shoved everything in your face and made it a very aggressive kind of song. But it's just a very quiet, subdued track. And it's another example of less is more. Same for Walking on the Moon.
Yep. All right, Aaron.
I've totally lost my thought here. Okay, so my number 5, I got to find the right one here. It's now I was going to say some stuff, but Jeff beat me to it. Can't Stand Losing. Love that song. It's always been one of my favorites. And the part where he's talking about my LP records and they're all scratched is one of the things that, since I was a little kid, that I was always stuck in my head. And I was like, that is so mean. I just thought it was, that's why I love it, because it's such a happy song, but so mean at the same time. And I just love, it's one of those infectious songs. I never get sick of it. I know some people get sick of some of theirs. I like a lot of their big hits, and that one especially, Can't Stand Losing You. It was almost my number 3, but it was, when you had it as your number 5, I was like, oh, okay. We're on the same track here a little bit. So, Can't Stand Losing You. And then for my number 4, it's back to this record again. All the way back to Next to You. I love Next to You, one of their heaviest, most frenetic songs. And it's like a punk song. I just love that song, Next to You. It's just all that energy of it. Even with the writing on his head. I hate what you write on records. Yeah, but yeah, it was. I almost picked Be My Girl Sally, but I had to go with Next to You.
I'm glad you did.
My Girl Sally is the only one I would. I like Mother better than that one. But you know
what's funny? Not to interrupt you, but like I know you were really shitting on the song Mother, and I know it is a weird song, but it's funny because like I can remember my friends and I, because that song was so weird, is that my mother on the phone? It's always been like singing that song like that.
I actually like Mother, especially when I'm drinking. It's really cool. I like the weird heaviness. It's kind of like the Inside from Van Halen, although I like Inside from Van Halen way better. That's one of my actual favorites. But Mother's got that weird thing where I actually kind of like it too in an odd way. It's not my favorite, but I like it at times. Yeah. So number 3, another one that is a happy song. I'm just in a happy mood, I guess. Canary in a Coal Mine. I love Canary in a Coal Mine. I've always loved it, since that's one of the main things of why I like this record. You get so happy even walking in a straight line. I just love the weird lyrics they have in it. And it's always been one of my favorite Police songs from my favorite Police record. And yeah, Canary in a Coal Mine. Every time that comes on, it's like one of those high energy songs that have really weird lyrics. That's what I like a lot. So it is happy at times, but that's all right. I get my darkness from my metal, so I got to have my happiness in other music.
There you go.
And so my number 2, going back to this, back to Here Again, and I've always had my 2 favorite Police songs. There's been 2 of them that have always been my favorite, and this is one of them. It's Don't Stand So Close to Me. I've always just loved that song. The lyrics, that whole story, kind of semi-autobiographical when he was a teacher named Gordon Sumner. So, you know, it's just, he has, only Sting can put creepy lyrics and make them really cool like that. And Every Breath You Take, which almost made my list, which is like the most popular song they ever did, but has the creepiest lyrics. It's like about a stalker. And Don't Stand Close to Me, you know, it's only Sting can make creepy lyrics sound cool like that, you know, where it's not creepy sounding. And it's just I love the song. Don't Stand So Close to Me. Always been my favorite from this. And there we go.
You remember that video when they were doing that, and they're like in a school classroom, and they've got like the whatever, the smocks on, what do you call those?
Professor robes or whatever you want to
call
it.
And they're dressed like that. And isn't that the one where like Stuart Copeland turns around and throws a paper wad at Sting?
Yeah.
While they're doing that. And you know, what's funny is, you know, they're just goofing off, and like they didn't plan that. They just did that shit. You know, because those guys argued a lot too. That band argued a lot, especially Stuart Copeland and Sting. Sting used to yell at Stuart when they were playing live, telling him either to slow down or speed up, because Stuart had a, you know, like a lot of drummers, you know, he'd speed up, he'd slow down. He didn't necessarily keep the same beat because he's not a machine. And Sting would be yelling at him, and Stuart would throw drumsticks at him and stuff. I think that added to the mystique of that band.
Yeah. But that's what makes Stuart Copeland so good, though. I don't see, when you speed up and slow down, that's the feeling in it. If it's all just a machine, and it takes a lot of the feeling out of the song. That's why. That's what
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. Yeah.
I'm with Stuart on that one.
Me too.
Well, I'm glad we're talking about Stuart Copeland, because my number 5 song, I think, is one of my favorite Stuart Copeland tracks. Not that he wrote, but just the fact that he's playing on it. And I'm going to this album for it. I'm talking about Driven to Tears. Love that track. And it's got a great bass line. I mean, the bass carries it all the way through. But then I love at the end, tears. I love, you know, it's got so many great moments, you know, and Sting going right before the instrumental break, oh, and then you got Andy Summer, who just gives a blistering guitar solo on there. I mean, one of the most dissonant guitar solos that he ever laid down on record. And then, you know, at the end where it just kind of ratchets up, and then Stuart Copeland starts in on the drums, and then he's just giving all his flourishes kind of at the end. You know, he's hitting that kick drum. He's got the toms going like crazy on that. I love the end of that song where they just kind of let Stuart Copeland go crazy on the drum kit. I think it's fantastic, but it's a, you know, great bass line, great, you know, and Andy Summers, except for the guitar solo, he just kind of gets out of the way. He's just kind of playing, you know, reggae chords, letting Sting and Stuart kind of steal the show on that track. But I love that one a lot. Number 4, Spirits in the Material World. We already talked about that one, but you know, again, it's so different. Yeah, just the whole, I mean, the first time that the Police had ever used synthesizer or keyboards on a record, and they went all in on it, you know, right from the get-go. Spirits in the Material World, like, is this the Police? Like, it sounds reggae, but it doesn't sound at all like the Police. But I love that. So I don't want to belabor the point too much because we already talked about it, but I think it's a fantastic track. Number 3, I'm going with Synchronicity 2. Love that one. Love the video. Love, it's just sort of like another suburban, it's just sort of like somebody going through the drudgery of suburban life and the 9-to-5 job and just kind of feeling like you're just a cog in a wheel and trying to fight against that. I love the fact that at bookends, side 1 with Synchronicity 1, and then at the end you have the conclusion, Synchronicity 2. So that's always been a huge favorite of mine. And then my number 2, going back to this excellent album, for Demolition Man.
Yes.
Favorite Sting bass riffs. But yeah, no, I just love it. And it never gets old. Like he could play and he plays that same riff all the way through, but it doesn't sound, you're not like, okay, enough already. You got the brass, you got the horns. Again, we talk about the synthesizer, but also this is the first time on a Police album that you hear brass, you hear horns, but they're not horns like Chicago would do horns or Blood, Sweat, and Tears. It's horns. It's like they're almost like they're out of tune, or there's something just right with those horns, but they add such a great texture to the song. They're like, and the very next track too, Too Much Information. It's like they're out of tune horns or something like that. But I don't know. I just love it. That's one of the reasons why I love that album, because you got two, they were branching out on this record. They were like, okay, we've done the reggae thing, we've done the punk thing, we've done the power pop thing. Now we're going in a completely different direction. We're going in a darker direction. With Ghost in the Machine. And, I think Demolition Man is such a great closer to an album side. But that's my number 2.
Awesome. Well, since you brought it up, I'll add a little bit to it, because Demolition Man was like right there. And man, I love that song. I also, Sting's delivery, I kill conversation when I walk into the room. I'm a walking disaster. I'm a demolition man. It's just so infectious. And I don't know if you remember, either one of you, do you remember when Grace Jones did a remake of that song? And, when you think about it, she did it kind of like, they had a video and she would kind of like, do this weird robotic movement. But when you think about it, that's kind of how Sting was almost singing that. He had that herky-jerky vocals going on in it. Man, that song kicks ass. I love Demolition Man. It was right. And I went back and forth on putting that in my top 10, so I'm really glad you mentioned it. All right, my number 1. I don't know. This isn't like any kind of big surprise, I don't think. But I went with Message in a Bottle. It's funny because, sometimes when we're making these lists, you want to put other songs in there maybe sometimes, but this song is just a perfect song. I haven't grown tired of this song. I love the lyrics in it. I love that guitar line. I know when this song was originally written, I think it was supposed to be a little bit different than it was, and they changed it up a bit. And Andy Summers added the idea of a little bit of flourishes, or like, how like when they go, it goes, and then when they go to the on that, I think it's an A chord, whatever. And it has that little vibrato and that sound going off. That was Andy Summers' idea to do that. And that also, and I don't know if this is correct or not, you might know this, Aaron, but I thought I had heard like a long time ago or something that the drums on that song were actually overdubbed. Like instead of, how like normally they have the bass and the drums and then maybe they add everything from that point, but like they had the other songs and then Stuart Copeland added the drums.
Well, it's almost a song with two choruses if you think about it, because you got I'll send an SOS to the world, and then message in a bottle. Which is the chorus, and then it goes into the the verses. But I mean, that's how it was, like an embarrassment of riches.
And then at the very end, you just keep sending out an SOS, sending out, and just keeps building. Yeah, it's great.
Great song. It's on here. I have a question though. Our other two good friends, Chris and JC, gave us lists. Are we going to tell theirs?
I think at the end we'll give their list. Yeah.
Okay. That's what I was kind of wondering here before we got to them. So, okay. So my number one, which was talked about already from this album, Synchronicity 2. Always been my favorite Police song. I love the darkness and ever since I saw the video, and every time I hear it, it just gives me it brings me back to that time. It just made such an impact on me when I was young. The lyrics are so, got to learn what he eats for breakfast. I never knew he had to sing was a Rice Krispie fan, but until I heard that song. And I just love the lyrics. I love his storytelling. And he's got some really wild lyrics in Synchronicity 2 that I really love. And it's just such a great dark song. Starting out with, the factory belches, smoking to the sky or whatever, and all that stuff. It's just, and the dark Scottish lake stuff. It's just, I love Synchronicity 2. Always been my favorite Police song. Like I said, I got into them during this. That's the only song from this actually made my top 10 though. But it's always been my favorite. That and Don't Stand So Close to Me have always been my two favorite Police songs. Along with Walking in Your Footsteps, which I didn't quite make it, but anything that talks about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But I just, Synchronicity 2 is just, for me, they could almost make that into a heavy metal song if they tried to. Just, it's got that feel to it. And that's maybe why I like it. Where it's kind of aggressive and the cool lyrics and everything. And I just love it.
I love his cadence on that too. Like certain verses, like packed like lemmings into shiny metal. Like that whole things that it's great. I love his style on that track.
Or a humiliating kick in the balls.
Yeah. Humiliating kick in the crotch. Yeah.
And then the guitar after it, and then it's just, to me, that's a perfect song, as is about 20 or 30 other songs, because they were just such a great band.
Yeah, that was right there too. We were doing top 15. That was in my list. I definitely love Synchronicity too. That's great.
All right. Well, as I'm looking back through my list, I realized I never gave my number 7 pick. I skipped number 7. I don't know why. I went right from number 8 to number 6. But real quickly, my number 7 was going to be The Bed's Too Big Without You. Out of the block. Another great bass line. Great Andy Summers guitar work. Very understated. But again, I can't imagine the song without Andy Summers. Guitar work on there. Interesting Stuart Copeland drumming. But so anyway, I remiss, I forgot that one because I'm like, I didn't have any Regatta the Block songs. What? Then I realized I did. But my number 1 is going to be Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. I'm still sticking with it. That was my number 1 on the last list that I did, and it's my number 1 now. We already talked about it already, but just beautiful all the way through. I love the opening of the track. The chorus is great. I love the end. Sting's always got the ooh, ooh, I mean, they even reprised it on Oh My God from Synchronicity at the very end. Do I have to tell a story of 1,000 rainy days since we first met? It's a big enough umbrella. Yeah, whatever. But, it's just great. Very cool song and always makes me happy. And my number 1. So
great song.
Guys, love this one. Love The Police. Can't argue with a single song on either of your lists. Interesting, none of us had Roxanne.
I know. Yeah.
It's just every time I hear that, I think of Eddie Murphy, and I can't get that out of my head.
Yeah.
I love that song, but I always think of Eddie Murphy. That's the first thing, not The Police, but Eddie Murphy is the first thing I think of when I hear that.
Or Every Breath You Take. None of us had Every Breath You Take.
Yeah, that was close to making mine. But the other 2 guys might have had one of those.
Okay.
Well, let's hear their picks, Aaron.
Yeah, what is Josh and Chris? How do they rank their songs?
Let's see. Josh only did 5. His top 5 was, if I can see. Let's see. I don't know which order these are in though. His top 5 is Can't Stand Losing You, Don't Stand So Close to Me, Synchronicity 2, Next to You, and Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. So one of those was magic. So I had my number 1, your number 1, but not Gary's. Sorry, Gary. And then Chris had Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic is number 10. Wrapped Around Your Finger, number 9. That's a good one too. That Don't Stand So Close to Me, number 8. So Lonely, number 7. Voices Inside My Head, number 6. Roxanne, number 5. I knew
somebody had Roxanne. There we go.
Can't Stand Losing You, number 4. Synchronicity 2, number 3. Message in a Bottle. Oh, I had that wrong. Message in a Bottle is number 1. Synchronicity 2. And the one I couldn't see was King of Pain was his 10. So those are all shifted down one. Message in a Bottle.
All right. So Chris had the same number 1 that I did. Way to go, Chris.
Yep. So yeah, Chris had a great list. Josh had a great list. It's hard not to with The Police though, really.
Really, you can't go wrong. They never put out a bad album.
Yeah, and I think I might have had 1 or 2 that didn't make it. I don't know. I think every one of mine, except for Behind My Camel, out of my top 20, made the list. It's someone's list. I'm trying to see here. Driven to Tears, Invisible Sun, Every Breath You Take, Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic, Voices Inside My Head, Walking in Your Footsteps, So Lonely, Message in a Bottle, Behind My Camel, and Truth Hits Everybody. So there's a few.
Yeah, almost all. I kind of assumed one of you guys would pick Roxanne in a way. I'm kind of surprised that nobody did, but it's probably because that might be just a little bit of overload. You know, we've heard that. I'm sure we've all loved that song.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's just a matter of maybe hearing it so much or whatever. But
I just can't get past the head.
You're taking an Eddie Murphy in the hot tub. What's your problem? Come on, man.
No, that was in him when he was in jail in 48 Hours.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
That's what it was. Right. And so he's like singing it while he's in the jail cell. And I just always think of me laugh. I love the song. It's a great one. It is.
That's a good movie. 48 Hours. That's a good movie. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys again. Had a great time doing this. If you got a list different than ours, love to see in the comment section how you would rank your top 10 police songs. We'll be back next week with another fantastic list. Another good time. Take care, everybody.
See ya.